What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. We are live breaking down Game 44 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season, losing this one here tonight 4-3 against the Boston Bruins, moving to 26-11-7 so far in the season. But the most interesting statistic to this point is this team is 0-7-3, or better, just 0-10 when trailing going into the third period, which is becoming a more daunting statistic. We talked about it last game. It was 0-5-3 going in against Detroit, and you're sitting there like, well, that's not too bad. You're trailing only a few times, and whatever, it is what it is. Well, the more that number continues to build up, it starts to build up some doubt in your mind. Maybe that team itself has doubt going into the locker room or coming out of the locker room into the third period going, we've never done this before. Can we do this now? And as you approach or surpass the 50% mark of the season, and you're going to be approaching the playoffs here, you know there's going to be times when you go into a playoff game and you're trailing going into the third period. And now if you're going to rely on historicals, you're going to rely on how it's gone in the regular season, because for this Leafs team, it's not really like they can look at previous playoff performances and go, oh, well, we've had success in the playoffs before. Nope, they haven't. So you're going to look at the regular season and go, we've never come back. We've not been able to overcome these deficits. Can we do it again here, or can we do it tonight for the first time? Well, now you're putting yourself in a playoffs situation where it's going to be way more locked down, way tighter in a type of game, and you haven't been able to do it before. So that's a little bit of a concerning one as it gets to that. And we continue to approach the playoffs. If you can't overcome deficits in third periods at some point here, that might continue to be a more concerning statistic for this Leafs team. But we will continue to break down tonight's game for this Leafs team, how things went for them, and just kind of the overall play of what went on, some of the pairing situations that happened. But if anyone here wants to call in, make sure to hit me up in the Leafs Digest Discord. I'll send a link to call in there. So if anyone wants to call in, please make sure to send a message on there. We'll get people in. Gord, if you're interested in calling in, please, of course, as always, feel free to let me know, and we'll get you on the call. People are looking for Gord's Corner, I'm sure of it. But we do have a super chat here from Michael. Shout out to Michael for the super chat. As always, greatly appreciated. Michael saying, big mistake. The coach shouldn't put the JT second line out at the last minute of the game. Our captain was skating like an old man tonight, and he looks tired. I don't disagree with you. He hasn't looked great recently. He does kind of look slower and more tired. I think we've seen like little spurts of life come back into his game. It's just, the weird thing to me was, my perspective on it is that I don't really think we're at a point here where JT can carry the line of him and Nylander and Järnkrok. I don't think Nylander can carry that line either, despite how well he's played so far. I think he had the success that he did because he was on the line with Matthews and Bunting, who can create things around him, and he's a great finisher. He's also a guy who's great at creating opportunities, finding space, and finding guys in space. So when you have guys who can finish and create opportunities as well around you, like them, then you're going to flourish in that. I think once it goes down to the second line, yeah, they're a good second line, but there's not really much driving that once he gets down there, which is a bit of a concerning thing, because we're sitting here watching Tavares, who's been slower over the last little while, hasn't looked as great. You switch Marner and Nylander in those positions going into the third period, and all of a sudden we're all sitting here going, wow, John Tavares still doesn't look great. That's kind of where some of the frustration can come in. And like, what do we do with this? It's also, Keefe has made some interesting decisions over the last couple of games that we've noticed, some of which would involve guys who's in the lineup, who's out of the lineup. Some of it involves defensive pairings. I think tonight got really exposed for that, because in the game against Detroit, you're sitting there like, Jordy Benn's not playing very well. Riley Hall was not a good pairing, but you don't want to put Riley and Ben together. You kind of end up handcuffing yourself. You put Timmins back in instead of Ben tonight, and Riley and Timmins just cannot happen again. I think everyone can admit that pairing cannot happen again. We cannot see a situation where those guys are matched up because Timmins is trying to figure things out and needs someone who's stabilizing alongside of him, and it's becoming more and more evident he's not. He's not. Riley is not the guy who's stabilizing a partner. He's the guy who needs someone stabilizing him as well, so that just creates a chaotic pairing that ends up happening together, and you kind of end up in a situation then where the only other possible option is to go back to Riley and Hall, which we saw on the other night on Thursday night against the Detroit Red Wings, and that was not a suitable option either. So now you're even handcuffed to that point where it's like Sandin and Liljegren should be playing together. They should not be split up. They've been very good. Even tonight, they were continued to be a good pair. They continue to be good individually, and there's no reason to separate them. So outside of that, the only other options, you basically have two. Riley plays with Hall or Riley plays with Timmins, and neither of them were good. That's where some of this kind of becomes curious of where you go from there, because there's not many moves that can be made with that. You need Brody to come back. He needs to be alongside Morgan Riley because he's the only guy who seems to be able to calm down Morgan Riley. And then outside of that, I think Sandin Liljegren, and then Keefe's never going to take number 3 out, so you basically have to go Gio number 3, and then you just roll from there. It is what it is. We can sit here and old man yell at clouds until the clouds come home, or the cows come home, but it's not going to be changed. That's what that pairing is going to be. Here is my proposal. And I don't think it's going to happen, and I think that part of the problem with this is that for some reason, the Leafs feel like they have to play Morgan Riley as the top pairing guy, the number 1 guy, because he makes as much money as he does. He cannot be in those situations anymore. He should not be on the first power play. He should not be the guy on the ice late in games. Whether you're trying to get a goal, whether you're trying to stop the other team from scoring goals, he should not be in that position. Sandin and Liljegren should be the number 1 pair moving forward. You try it down the stretch. You are through 44 games. We're approaching trade deadline. Try Sandin and Liljegren together as a pairing. If you put Sandin and Liljegren together as a pairing here, you at least have some consistency. You have guys who can drive play, guys who are fairly defensively responsible, good with the puck, and they can create some offense. Their play somewhat physical. And if you can put them in those minutes and battle test them to finish the season, you might have them continue to elevate their play as this continues on. Every time we've seen those two guys get thrown into the fire, they've gotten better and they've come out on the other end of it better. Try them as the first pair. Try them in the important situations. I believe that those guys can step up and actually elevate their game to a point here where they might be capable of taking over the top pair. Shelter Riley a little bit. Him and Brody can be a very good second pair. And then just go down with your third pair of Gio and number 3. Because we know they're not going to take him out of the lineup. We can get any type of conversation we would like here about it. They're not going to change them. Try Sandin and Liljegren as your 1 pair. I think there's going to be a reluctance to do it because of how much money he makes. But sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes you have to just accept it. Vincent Lee saying, I think this team does not have a number 1 or number 2 type D-man. We have 4 number 3 and 4. We have 4 number 3 and number 4 and 3, number 5 and 6. That might be the problem. Well, I slightly disagree because I think Sandin and Liljegren right now are in a 3-4, but I kind of want to see where I'm saying the only reason I would disagree is because I feel as though if they get put into the 1-2 position, they might be capable of being the 1-2. I think these guys are the future of this Leafs defensive core. I'm almost to the point here, essentially, where like any trades calling in, unless it's going to blow your doors off at the trade deadline, if those guys' names are mentioned in any conversation, the answer is just no. I think these guys are the future of it, but I think push them up into a situation here where you might be able to get some more out of them. You might be able to get some more reliability, responsibility. You might be able to push their play to a new level that we haven't seen before. Again, a reminder, if anyone wants to call in here tonight, please make sure to go to the Leafs Digest Discord. I'll send the link again here for anyone who wants to call in. You can send a message, and I will take some calls here tonight. We can hear your thoughts on the game, on the defensive pairings. But as far as the defensive pairings go, I think there's some interesting decisions made. I think Dryden Hunt played better here tonight. I don't think he played incredible. I think there's a hesitancy for him going in because I really, really liked what we saw out of McMahon against Detroit on Thursday. Now, this is a completely different team, but he kind of feels like he's one of those guys who could excel in a type of game like this. Now, I'm not saying that from a large sample size or having watched him closely with the Marlies or based on his stats or anything. This is just based on what we saw energy-wise in the preseason and then in the game that he played against Detroit on Thursday. He had a lot of energy. He had a lot of intensity. He was capable of creating plays, creating opportunities. How could that guy not match up well in a situation against Trent Fredericks and Foligno and Greer and those guys? Like, how you're telling me he couldn't match up well against them just from an intensity, a physicality, and a speed standpoint? I think he could. So I was a little bit disappointed to see him come out of the lineup. I've fallen in love with Pontus Holmberg throughout the course of this season. I understand you're kind of handcuffed. You want to put Wayne Simmons in here. Part of it is the dad's trip, okay? Part of it is you feel like this is going to be a physical one. He does end up fighting Foligno. I think that he was pretty good here tonight, but we see minimal of him in the third period, which is like kind of frustrating because, and the only reason I'm going to say it's frustrating is because you end up, if Holmberg's in the lineup, Holmberg's going to get minutes in the third period, whereas Sheldon Keefe looks down the bench, doesn't trust Wayne Simmons to go out there, which that's partially where I go with when we are sitting here going, oh, we need big fighting guys. They're not going to play them in the third period. A guy like Pontus Holmberg, he will play in the third period. I know he had a 10-minute misconduct, but even after the 10-minute misconduct, like, he wasn't out there on the ice. It's just, you know that a guy like Holmberg will get through the rotation still 10 in the third period. So that's kind of just, that's the only point that I have on that. But yeah. And then the other thing that was frustrating in terms of a coaching perspective from tonight, the Matthews line scores a goal. You have some momentum. It was a great goal. Marner goes down, steals it off McAvoy. Passes to Bunting. Bunting pauses for a second, holds, waits till Matthews enters the zone, feeds Matthews, cuts across, buries, nice goal. Tie a game now in the third period, like you are ready to roll. And the third period was rocking. But immediately after, the pairing that he goes out there with is Riley Timmins. How do you come to the conclusion in your mind that that's the pairing that needs to go out there following a goal while you've just built up some momentum? In the second period, he couldn't even trust them out there together, let alone in an important situation. He actually split them up for periods of time where you had random guys going out there together and then kind of resulting into Hall, Riley, Gio, Timmins being a pairing to kind of close out that period. And then you get to the third period, you score a goal to tie it, and you immediately go Riley Timmins. Right after they go out there, the Leafs end up on a full minute and a half defensive shift where they're basically being cycled around. They can't get the puck back. They can't get positioning. They can't get set up. They can't get the puck out of the zone. And this is with Riley and Timmins out there on the ice. How is that the decision to go out there immediately after? Oftentimes, he trusts a line like Kampf and Engvall and Kerfoot to go out there after the fact when they're playing together. Zach Aston-Reese was in that spot for a bunch of the game tonight. But he's putting Kampf and Engvall out there because he knows a couple of things. One, they're going to be defensively responsible. Two, Kampf is good on the draw, so a lot of times he's going to win the draw to possess the puck immediately. Three, he knows that that line is capable of getting pucks out of the zone, transitioning up ice, and then being able to circle around the zone, cycle the puck, maintain some offensive pressure, and maybe continue the momentum. The pairing that would best suit that type of mindset would be the Sandin Liljegren pairing. Those guys are capable of creating offense, carrying the puck up. They are defensively responsible. They will take risks, but not to the extent of a guy like Morgan Rielly who went out there after the fact. Not putting those guys out there immediately following the goal was, in my opinion, a really bad decision. Like a very bad decision. Then what happens? You end up in your own zone, getting the puck cycled on you immediately after that goal, basically negating any of the momentum that was created right after. I think some of those decisions were just weird because we've gotten to this point in the season with good decisions and not having seen that for the most part. The only times we've sat here and gone, what was going on, was when he's putting Matthews, Marner, and Rielly out there to start an overtime, and we're losing them within the first minute and a half. So, I don't know. There's been some interesting coaching decisions that have gone on over the last little while. I think that hopefully we basically get to a position where where we don't have to question those and it's more just about the players, because for the most part we've been pretty happy with what has been done. But yeah, I can't look past those things and say that that's not gone on. Some comments in the chat. Craig Harrison, I'm worried about Riley's situation. This guy's going to cost the Leafs games going forward. I would agree. 6 1/3. Good analysis, Zack Phillips. Thank you. Jim Langdon, to win games like this one against Bruins and Bolts, some changes are required to restructure the Leafs core. Otherwise, we'll end up losing even great games like this one. I don't necessarily know. Well, it depends on who you're going to consider in the core, but I don't necessarily know that there is like big change needs to happen to the core. What I would argue though is more and more I'm going to look at this and say this is a spot where you would like extremely benefit from an impactful top six forward. Now, this guy, I think there's 0% chance now you get him, but like a Tom Wilson or a guy like Josh Anderson. Those are the kinds of players that now I look at and think that sliding in Timo Meier, maybe a Sam Bennett, sliding into a game like this team could very much benefit from having them in a top six role, because they're not going to take themselves out of the play physically, but they can engage in the physical game, which I actually think the Leafs did a pretty good job of tonight. They didn't shy away from it at all. They actually out-hit Boston. Like, this Leafs team was not afraid of any of it. That wasn't their problem tonight. Tonight it was more mental mistakes, some of the turnovers, and we'll get to the one that actually ended up costing them the game later on. But I think this is one of those games that really highlights the fact that you get yourself a guy who can fit into this lineup, like when they added a Taylor Hall, when Boston added a Taylor Hall. Now, he's not the physical guy, but he's a guy who can be a game breaker. I think that if we can get a top 6 guy in this offense, this could be a really, really different looking game here tonight. Because I think you're looking at a guy who could probably create a lot more, maybe help drive Tavares and Nylander if he's going to be on that line going forward now, and be a little bit more of a distraction to the other team. And I think that that's where they're heading. But that's kind of where watching this game, like, it starts to pull me that direction. Now, I do see some other stuff here, and I know it's going to come up in conversation throughout the course of the show here tonight about what to do and, like, hey, do you need a defenseman? I don't know, like, if the conversation is, do you need a defenseman? I think, as harsh as it is, like, I think maybe where you kind of end up is, like, do you need, as Taylor also says, at what point do we start referring to Riley as number 44? Do you need a 44? I've been adamantly opposed to the trade of it before. Whenever Josh has been on the show and brought it up, I always said, like, it's the value that he can bring offensively. When you had TJ Brody playing the way TJ Brody was before alongside of him, it negates it. You can get the offensive production. Now you're not getting any offensive production even when he was playing with Brody, and you're getting terrible, terrible defense from him where he looks lost. He looks incapable of carrying the puck up the ice. He's lacking confidence right now. He's not contributing to offense, and he's just a net negative every time he's on the ice, so that's kind of where it goes with that. I will say this. It will not happen. This team will not do it. They will not do it, and he has a no-move clause. Seeing Riley be traded for a guy who can make an impact in your top end, it would not happen at the deadline. If anything, it would have to happen in the offseason. Seeing him be traded could be something that could potentially be a very positive move for this Leafs team. You want to sit here and talk about, changing the core? That could potentially be it. That could be the Kawhi trade, where you trade the guy who's been here for a while, who's been a part of it, helped build it as kind of we were afraid to move on from, and moving him out could be the shakeup that's needed. If you can get a massive piece back, because that's kind of where you go with this, is like, people are not going to trade a top forward for just a lesser forward unless they're in a position where they need to get worse. So if you're going to look at an offseason trade for it potentially, maybe it's just a better fit for both teams, or a team that's looking for an offensive defenseman. It will not happen at the deadline, though. It will not happen at the deadline. Got to be honest about that. But, yeah. Jeffrey Curry, do you send Riley down to the Marlies for conditioning? You literally can't. Appreciate the thought, but literally can't. I mean, I know it's like, this guy's playing terrible, we don't need him in our lineup, but the second that you send him down, he's going to get picked up, because we don't see it. It hurts us. It's not what we need, this Leafs team needs. But the thing that we have to understand is that there's going to be some team out there who's looking for an offensive defenseman. They don't care about the other stuff. They're looking for an offensive defenseman. And as much as we can be frustrated about the price tag for what he is, we need the guy who's offensive and defensive, and he's just not that. There's some team out there going, man, we need someone who can be offensive because we've got the defensive horse. And some team would pick him up if you send him down and waive him. Like, he would be picked up, and you just can't afford to lose a guy in that position on the waivers for nothing. That would be where things could get ridiculous. So, yeah, 6 1/3. Let him get picked up. We benefit. That contract is an anchor. I'm a classic saying, last few games, Riley has given the puck away leading to a goal. Enough. Move him to forward when TJ comes back. Solve 2 issues in 1 move. I just don't think they're going to move the guy to forward midseason. Like, if that's a move that would happen, that's an off-season move where you're like, hey, man, You kind of suck at defense. We need you to play forward. But I don't think that's happening. Mark Sherry saying, quit hating on Riley. He was trying to carry Timmins in a big game to have the best of the other pairings. Would disagree. And the thing I would have to say about that as well is if that's the case, then taking Jordy Ben out of this game was the massive mistake if you knew that he was going to have to be carrying Timmins. Through no point has Timmins had to be carried by a partner. When he's played with anybody else, no one else has looked worse playing alongside of him. He did not have to carry Timmins. That pairing just looked bad because you've got a guy who basically is getting back from an injury and can't play defense alongside a younger guy who's now having to watch his defensive partner skate everywhere, not be in position. Timmins made some bad plays tonight. I will admit that. The goal Pastrnak scored was all on Timmins. He turns, fires across the ice, without looking, goes, Pastrnak picks it off. That's a bad play. Can't deny that. Bad play. Lacked decision-making and some awareness on that one. It is what it is. But he had a bad night of his own. Yes, he did. But it's just, this has been a consistent theme with Morgan Riley so far. I will say, I saw some comments about it earlier in the chat. Pierre Engvall has been somewhat impressive as of recently. The thing that gets frustrating with him is the slow start to the season. It's like what we used to see out of like Freddie Anderson. But Pierre Engvall has been impressive lately. I think that he's kind of upping value, whether that is something you want to trade at the deadline or if that is your own internal value. I think he's doing that. Obviously, it's going to be easy to look at the goal he scored here tonight and just kind of run off of that. But it's more just about the play, the style of game that he has, and how he can help this team or be an effective player. He's kind of surpassed the point of being serviceable. Now he's a guy who can be effective. His skating is pretty good. He is pretty good at actually controlling the puck, especially in the offensive zone. He can cycle the puck well, and he plays well alongside David Kampf. They're not going to be a line that's going to blow you away with creativity or offensive chances. That being said, they can create occasionally, if not offensive chances, they can create some momentum because they can hold the other team in the offensive zone for extended periods of time. So I think when you look at him and what he can bring, you have to understand that because that is something that is important. And our man saying at least Engvall played physical tonight. Kerfoot played an awful game on Detroit and tonight. Yeah, it's just like I'm not going to kind of compare the two across. I know people have a huge problem with Kerfoot. Understand why. I think, though, always everything that he does is just going to be knocked down a peg every time because we're always going to look back at that trade and who he was involved in the trade with, and it's just going to make it a million times worse looking at it. So I understand. I don't necessarily disagree, but I think it's always going to be considered worse than he is just because of what he was involved in. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that was a good trade. It was not. It looks even more like worse as time goes by, but yeah, I think it just makes it look a little bit worse as it goes. But as far as the Pierre Engvall conversation goes, I think he's looked good, and I think he's kind of playing himself into staying with this team, to be completely honest. I think he's kind of playing himself into that position where you kind of go, maybe we don't trade him because he plays well with Kampf, and that is important, and he can create and maintain offensive zone time. They can kind of create some momentum. He's pretty defensively responsible. You're looking at the guy right now. He's 15 points in 41 games played, projected to finish with 28 points. Making 2.2. I think that's a contract you can be fine with. if you guys are enjoying the content right now, if you have not subscribed already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. You can also turn on notifications so you get notified every time we go live here. By clicking that bell, you get notified for live streams, videos that get posted, all that kind of stuff. So make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications as well. Please make sure to like this stream right now. We got 107 people watching, only 23 likes. If you could please hit that like button, that would be greatly appreciated. And as always, just a reminder, if anyone wants to call in here tonight, send me a message on Discord or let me know in the chat if you can't find your way to it, and I'll make sure to send a link out so we can get some callers on the line. If Gord is in here right now, Gord, we'd be happy to have Gord's Corner after a game like this, because I think this game was actually pretty good. I think the Leafs played well. They played physical. They didn't shy away from anything. They weren't scared of the Bruins' physicality or the after the whistle stuff. They weren't scared of any of that. They didn't shy away from the fact that Brad Marchand is throwing cross checks at Marner after whistles, or guys are sticking each other in scrums. Like, they did not steer away from that. They created chances. They played. There wasn't really anything against too frequently that we sat here and just went, oh, wow, that was terrible of this team, other than really the Timmins giveaway or the Tavares giveaway late. But for the most part, this was a pretty good game all around by this Leafs team. So I was pretty happy with it. It was a fun one to watch. We just essentially lose this one because some questionable mistakes, some bad mistakes that happened. And that's going to be the difference in a game that's going to be a playoff-like game, a playoff-type atmosphere. That's kind of where you end up with these ones where it's a matter of one or two plays. That Tavares giveaway at the end of the game inside the Leaf zone where he's passing it across the ice, trying to pass it across the ice, gets picked off, comes back the other way, sets up some offensive zone pressure for the Bruins. They're able to maintain it in the Leaf zone. Puck bounces out to Grzelcyk, and he's able to bury with like a minute left. You're not getting that back. Not against this Bruins team. So those are kind of the mistakes that you got to clean up. You got to fix. That's the frustrating ones. Soft Skull Bubble Brain asking about Ullmark throwing his stick. No penalty, and they score. Yeah, that was a frustrating play. I don't know. It was just, in the moment, I saw it, and truthfully, I didn't even think it was a thrown stick until watching it back after the fact. So for me, sitting there watching that one, I think it's kind of justified because I'm like, oh, justified of non-call, because in real time, me watching it, I didn't think it was a penalty. Watching it after, yes, it was a penalty. I think it could have been a penalty. But I don't really have like a complaint about it in general, just because seeing that one, the way the stick went in real time especially, it wasn't like, to me, oh my God, he threw the stick. I think he's trying to dive across, make a reactionary save across to Marner. I don't think he threw it. I think it was more of a momentum thing. Stick comes out of the hand. But when you slow it down and you watch it frame by frame from 35 different angles, it looks like he's going, chucking the stick out there. I don't think so in real time, really. So I don't have a problem with it not being called. As far as, I think Daleks here is saying that they should have challenged. I think if you're talking about them challenging the final goal that Grzelcyk scored, no. That would have been a complete waste, in my opinion at least. There was no interference. I don't think the stick hit it. I think, if anything, almost maybe Hall had bumped into him or Tavares had bumped into him. I don't think it was whoever was crossing in front of the net. I think it was Coyle who was crossing in front of the net. I don't think it was intentional or there was a bumping by any Bruins player on it. I don't think that was one that should have been challenged. I think they were right to not challenge it. The other thing you end up with there is if you challenge and you lose the challenge, you're now with a minute 20 left, you're down 1 goal, and you're going to be killing a penalty for the rest of the game when you probably would much rather have 5-on-5, pull the goalie and try to get it. I think it was way too questionable of one where there was going to be no way that was going to be overturned. Donald Kennedy saying the refs, really, every city gets screwed, people. 100%. The refs have been so terrible this year, and you are not going to get me sitting here complaining about what happened in this game from the referees tonight. I have no complaint about it in terms of anything going against the Leafs. I think if there's any complaints about the reffing tonight, I think both teams can have gripes about it. I don't think it impacted the outcome of the game, but I think it's completely valid and fair for both teams to come away from it being like, yeah, this reffing sucks. I think it just does all around. Look at the game where in Tampa, yes, he gets fined after, but the referee is standing 5 feet away watching Sergachev sucker punch Connor Garland in the face. Look at the game in Dallas where Jake Ottinger's helmet, the strap breaks on his helmet. He's shaking his head. His helmet is loose on his head, coming off his head. Looking at the ref won't call the penalty, so he finally takes his helmet off, or knocks his helmet off, and then he gets a penalty for it. Yes, that is in the rules that if you take your own helmet off, it's a penalty, but where the hell is the awareness from the referee to look at the goaltender for a player safety purposes who's shaking his head, likely yelling on the ice that his head is his helmet is broken. Like, the refs just in general in the NHL this season have been insane. Donnie, appreciate all the support. Let's hit 50 likes tonight. If you guys haven't hit like yet, please make sure you do so. And go and enjoy the cooking and the dishes. Donnie does dishes. 6 1/3. Donald. Oh, I'm just going to leave that. But Mr. Potter saying, team needs a true number 1 D-man. Would push all D-men down the lineup, which would help this team greatly. Yeah, I would say a number 1 defenseman is something this team has been missing for a while. We've never really had it. I continue to look around the league and see Victor Hedman, Cale Makar, Pietrangelo when they won, John Carlson when Washington won, Drew Doughty during... I see Warrior Womp saying, Wall 10-0, let's go. Yeah, it's sick what he's doing down there with the Marlies. I don't think it's going to have any impact on the team this year, but maybe it's something you look at next year where he could be a guy to get a tap to come up and see what he can do. But if you decide maybe you got to walk away from Samsonov at the end of the year. But, yeah, with the number 1 defenseman, we've never had it. And one thing that I was always like hesitant to move on from Morgan Rielly from, I love TJ Brody, but he's not a number 1 either. And I've always felt, and it's just a theory, it's obviously not going to be proven here in Toronto, but I've always felt like if Morgan Rielly had a true number 1 that could go with him, he could potentially be the best number 2 in the NHL, but he's not a number 1. Like, think about if Morgan Rielly had a Pietrangelo alongside him, right? Which is obviously crazy, like a long shot to say, but if he has that, maybe he could be the Devon Toews to a Cale Makar. Maybe he could be that perfect sidekick. Maybe not, but, you know, that was kind of always the theory that I ran with. But watching this now, it's like he's going to be far too expensive. You're going to have to get, like, who is that guy that's out there that's available right now? I don't really think you have one. I don't know if you even have one in the possibility of trading for Parayko. I don't know if Parayko is maybe that real true number 1 guy. I don't think he's kind of at that level yet. So I think that is missing. But that being said, we did see Pittsburgh win the cup without the number 1 guy when Letang was dealing with some injuries. They did it kind of by committee. Now, that was a more rare instance. It's not like that happens very frequently. So I wouldn't really like rely on that being the case going forward, or rely on that being a thing that we can say, hey, a lot of teams have done this. Not quite. But yeah, I think if you can build the committee strong enough and deep enough, then it's more likely. But I don't think as it stands right now, it's quite at the point of saying, hey, this is the deep six defensemen that can kind of carry you there. I think they're probably a step away from that. Maybe what Colorado did, where they go out and they get Josh Manson and he fits into the 3-4 spot, and now you've got the best 3-4 probably in the NHL with Josh Manson being down there, because your 1-2 is Cale Makar, Devon Toews. Johnny G, let's give away another first-round pick. How many would that be in the last 5 years? I would have to say, like, why do you want the first-round pick if you're trying to win right now? That first-round pick, if you are going to be a good team, is likely going to be late 20s, mid to late 20s. If you're going to be the best teams, 30, 31, 32. Why would you want that first round pick? Steven Beer, appreciate the support. Go Leafs, go. But why would you want that first round pick? That's where I kind of get to where it's like, Pittsburgh gave up first round picks to try to win. They ended up winning. Tampa Bay, easily moving on from draft picks. They're capable of replenishing by finding guys in later rounds or making trades for younger guys. Look at who they traded for. Hagel coming out of nowhere. They traded for Sergachev and found Cirelli as a diamond in the rough. Found Braden Point. Like, they were capable of moving on from those picks and still finding guys anyways. If you're going to be trading away a pick that's going to be mid to late 20s, and you feel it can really impact your team and actually help you win, go for it. Go for it. Because part of the problem is we all have this situation where the easiest thing to remember, the easiest thing to look at is Foligno. It didn't work with Foligno. And I think Dubas is going to be much more aware of that. I think in that moment, I can only speculate this, but they kind of sat there and they said, hey, this is the cost of acquiring a player like this right now. This is the type of player that we need. Let's get him. I don't think they would be looking to move on from a first-round pick for that kind of stuff again. So I understand the hesitancy to move a first-round pick, but I truly believe when I'm sitting here saying this right now on this stream is that I think if a first-round pick is going out the door, it's going to be for a much higher quality player than that Nick Foligno one. So don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of that trade happening. Also, we're at 42 likes, 93 people watching. If you guys are watching right now, please hit that like button. It would be greatly appreciated. And I'm seeing some talk about the refs hate Marchand. I don't know about that. But I think that guy's a little rat scumbag. Gets away with so much. And if he is hated, it's deserved because he's a rat scumbag. Warrior Womp, Leafs have the best scouting in the league. That's why teams always pick up their guys off waivers. I wouldn't say maybe best scouting in the league, but some of the best scouting. Yeah, I think like teams like Tampa, very good scouting. Colorado, good scouting. I don't know if you can necessarily quantify specifically who has the best scouting, but yeah. DSTND for WSOP still gets called all the time. I think you even got to admit he deserves to be called all the time. It's like when Nazem Kadri was getting called for penalties, Leafs fans are not sitting there complaining he's getting called for penalties. Like, he's taking penalties. Steven Beer, Always hated Brad Marchand, LOL. Only loved him on Team Canada. Don't you agree? Yes. 6 1/3. Looking for Murray conversation here. Oh, Dalek saying, what are your thoughts on Murray's performance tonight? Here's what I'd say about Murray. Yeah, I agree that. Well, first of all, before Murray, DSTN Distant 4 WSOP saying you would love him on your team. Agreed. Would love him on my team. That's why we love Bunting. He's not as good as Marchand. Clearly, Marchand is a very good player. But yeah. But that's what, like, Distant 4 WSOP, you could probably sit here and tell me you probably hate Bunting. You probably hated Kadri, right? But let's talk about Matt Murray. I think Murray was good tonight. I think he made some big saves. He made some very important saves. Looking at that one early on in the game against Marchand, the backdoor one, that was an incredible one. That was an incredible save. Here's the problem. This was one of those games here tonight where there's a comment in the chat. This is one of those games here tonight where Murray made some very, very good saves. And those are going to stand out. But he did have an .882 save percentage. He allowed 4 goals on 34 shots. And a couple of the goals that he let in were bad. The Pasta one, I think he assumed pass was coming. So he was ready to move across for pass. Pasta goes 5-hole on him. Not great. The one where he was slightly screened by Timmins. Again, I think he probably could have and should have had that one. The first goal that was scored against him, that was the one where it's the unconverted chance, Allmark stick throw, as people are saying in the chat. Come down the other way. Riley, giveaway. Bad giveaway. Picked off. Timmins makes the wrong read. Tries to step up on the play. Misses. Gets burned by Marchand. Grabbing the puck. Steps right around him very easily. Makes a pass to Bergeron, who taps the puck in. Not Murray's fault, I don't think, on that one. He obviously has to play the shot. Knows the guy is there, but he's got to play the shot because you're essentially facing 2-on-0 coming in, and it's two of the most lethal players, so I don't really blame him on that. Maybe you're going to hear some, well, he kind of should have stepped back a little bit. I could understand that conversation, but I don't think it's like really his fault. And then the final goal, I don't know. I think it got deflected, and I think it hit something on the way in. If you watch it from the lower camera angle as it goes, it looks like it kind of changes direction. Now, maybe that was just a dip because the puck was going head over heels, fluttering. But yeah, it's just hard because like he kept him in the game, but a couple of those goals weren't very good. So that's kind of like where I'm at with it, where it's like, hey, I'm fine with what happened with Murray tonight. I think we put him in some bad spots. I think the first goal that was scored, the Bergeron goal, he got hung out to dry there. I think the final goal was a bad giveaway by Tavares, where you're coming back quickly in a crappy spot. Pressure's maintained in the zone. You have to step out to face the shot. Flutter puck coming in. Dips below, I think it dipped below glove and above pad. So that's kind of it. I don't know. I don't have like a complaint about him tonight, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, he was amazing. He gave them an opportunity early and then had some kind of, whoop, that was a mistake moments. Johnny G, Foligno, Muzzin, and 2 others to dump salaries, Mrazek and Marlowe, and 1 they kept. The unfortunate player is ill. Denver Charlebois, do you really see us getting past the first round? I don't know. You know what? I'm honestly not even going to sit here and make that prediction. Like, as optimist, I want to see it, but I can't sit here and tell you yes, because who are we going to play? Probably Tampa. What situation are you going to end up in with this team? Who knows? They can't get out of the first round as is. We've seen them in optimal matchups against Montreal Canadiens. Couldn't get out of the first round there. Couldn't get out of the first round against Columbus. Had the hardest matchup that they've probably had of all of them against Tampa. Losing game 7. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. The answer, do I think they could get past the first round? Yeah, because I think all of the teams that we've seen over the past few years had the potential to get out of the first round. I think they all did. So what do I say about this year? Like, yeah, I think they could, but they're going to play Tampa. Meg saying, wasn't Allmark's save percentage worse than Murray? Why are we talking about Murray? Because Murray's the goalie of the Leafs and we were asked about Murray. That's why. Allmark's the goalie for the Bruins. Warrior Womp saying, if Wayne is retiring after this season, why didn't he cross-check Marchand's teeth out this game? Would have made no difference. Well, because he has some integrity. I understand, but I think he's just like not going to do that. He's going to fight Foligno and get in people's grills, but yeah, it's not going to do that. I'm tired. Warrior Womp, how funny would it be if Tage Thompson bumps the Bruins out of round 1? Like, I know there's probably some Bruins fans watching here, so you guys are going to be, like, laughing. But, yeah, like, I'd obviously like to see the Bruins lose in the first round. I don't know. I think all Leafs fans would probably like... Actually, I don't want to see them lose in the first round, and here's why. I want to play Boston, and not because, I think we can beat the Bruins. I kind of do think we could beat them. Like, look at the way that this game was played here tonight. But I want to exercise the demons. Like, beat Tampa. That's one of those like inspiring wins where you can build off of that going into the next series. Beat Boston. That's something that can continue on and you can continue to use. Like, I'm not going to be sitting here saying, like, when all those small college schools sit there and yell, like, we want Georgia, we want Bama, but, like, I want Boston because I want to exercise those demons. We beat them earlier in the year. We played well against them tonight. Like, this is no longer a huge mismatch to me when I see this, like, going up against this team. Like, I think that this could be something you could win. And the thing is, too, like, it's so easy to sit and be like, oh, well, we want the easy matchup. Like, give us Detroit if they're going to make a push, or give us the worst teams that you could play. Like, why, if you're going to be the best team in the NHL, you got to beat the best teams. You have to face the best teams that you can play. Don't shy away from them. You got to beat them. You got to get through them. It's not really like, I see Wayne Whiteside saying, be careful what you wish for. I understand. I'm not really sitting here like wishing for that. It's more just like bring them on, like play them, beat them. It's not going to be easy. None of this is going to be easy, but that's also like if you played Buffalo, that's not going to be easy. If you played, like, if you played the Islanders, if any of these teams you played, they're not going to be easy, but you have to beat them. You have to get creative. You're going to have to play a different style. You're going to have to play more physical in some. You're going to have to play more skilled in some. You're going to have to change your forecheck in games. You're going to have to change your power play in series. Like, there's no easy way to win the Stanley Cup. It's why it's the hardest Stanley Cup. It's why it's the hardest championship to win. If you're basically sitting here lining up like, oh, we have to play the easiest teams in order for us to do it, it's like, I think that's just a sad mindset to have to go through watching it going into the playoffs. I think bring on the hard teams. Like, we got to take them on. We got to take them on. And I'm not sitting here like, oh, give me Boston. But it's more just like, just don't be afraid of Boston. Steven Beer, love your hat and mullet. Keep the mullet growing for a deep playoff run. Yeah, don't really have like as much of the mullet now. It's more just long hair. But yeah, I'll keep it going. I'll keep the hair growing, and then we can rock mullets for playoffs again if we want. But I will be getting, I think this is the right one, but we will be getting a champagne bottle from Michael, if everyone remembers the champagne bottle. Saying they wouldn't make the playoffs this year. 6 1/3 saying, I need a win, Zach. I'm good with easy at this point. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm fine with an easy win at this point. I'm fine with it. It's more just like, I'm not going to be sitting here saying, give me the easy teams. Bring on the easy teams. Like, I'm fine with playing against the best teams. And I think that this could be something where it's get through them, get over the hump, and it's that step where it's like, hey, we beat them. We can do this. I see Steven Beer. Remember last year you did the smelling salts? Yeah. We've got them still. We've got them still. Don't worry. Don't worry. Rico, if I could go to dinner with two people, it would be Bob Marley and Wayne Simmons' dad. I need to calm the F down about this team.
Good one, Rand.
That's a good comment. I appreciate that. Stephen Beer, I did also see the question about Montreal Canadiens lover Goody. Goody is doing Raptors content right now. So that is where you will find him. You can see him also on the Habs Digest. If you guys are interested in finding out what's going on with the Montreal Canadiens, you can find it there. Handshake line respect. I'd rather face the hardest teams in the conference finals and Stanley Cup finals, not first round or even second. That's fair. You can feel that way, but like the reality is you're going to face Tampa in the first round. So we're going to face one of the hardest playoff-tested, battle-tested teams right away. So you got to be prepared for it. And then likely after that, you're facing Boston. So it is what it is. But appreciate the compliments as well, Stephen Beer. Vincent Lee, I said earlier, we lost, but we showed Boston fans we can beat them in the playoffs. Like, the thing is, when we've played these teams, it's not like we've gone into the playoffs and been blown out by them. We haven't gotten over the hump, but it hasn't been embarrassing or a catastrophe yet. So, these are the teams we're going to face. Bring it on. Jay Edits, what's happening with Poppy? Look, let's talk about Austin Matthews a little bit here. Actually, you know what? Let's get into our play of the day, the Austin Matthews play of the day, and let's get into some Matthews talk here. All right. Austin Matthews' play of the day is going to go to the Austin Matthews goal. First and foremost, smacking the puck out of the air, the hand-eye coordination and the strength that he has to hit the puck out of the zone from within his own blue line, like out of the air like that, was pretty funny to watch. But Marner chases it down, takes the puck off McAvoy, makes a pass to Bunting. Bunting has the patience and the wherewithal to wait for Matthews to come into the zone, and Matthews does what he does best as a goal scorer, is finding that timing, the pace, the patience, waiting to get into the zone at the right time, at the right moment, and then rather than just shooting it right away, makes the pull across the ice, goes to his backhand, times it, waits, pulls to the forehand, and goes upstairs. It was a beautiful goal, great patience, and good all-around play. Gets the puck down the ice. Marner goes and steals it, makes a pass to Bunting. Bunting doesn't just force it. He waits for Matthews to enter the zone, hits him coming in. Great play. Let's talk more about Matthews specifically, though, as we try to get to 50 likes on the stream. If you guys are watching right now, please hit that like button. Even you, distant for WSOP, I appreciate that to your Bruins fan. But even if you hit that like button, maybe if you even hit the subscribe button so you can come back here for more Leafs talk and games going forward and give us your unbiased opinion on Leafs games, that would be appreciated. But let's talk about Matthews and what went on. This is one of the best games we've seen Matthews play in a while here. He seemed physically engaged. He was moving well. He was winning faceoffs, and he was creating some offensive opportunities. Matthews looked pretty good here tonight in a game where he's coming back. This in for WSOP. Appreciate it. Thank you. But Matthews coming back in a game here where he's missed the last two. We've known from the beginning that he's not 100% because of the cross-check that he took against or from Jamie Benn early on in the season. And he never really got to the point where he looked like he was at where he was at last year. I don't think he was quite at that point here tonight. I'm not going to say that. But this was one of the best games that we've seen him play in a while because he just looked in a lot of the other facets of his game like he was kind of approaching that. And then that goal was one of those ones where it's like, it's the tough game against a team that's going to play you hard, play you physical, play you tough. He didn't shy away. He didn't look like he was ailing from anything during that physical play. They know the guy's been out injured. He's been hurting. Not to say, like, that's not saying it's dirty or anything, but it's like they're going to target him. They're going to take that opportunity knowing he's ailing from that. Like, that's what you should do. You know the guy is not 100%. Take him out of the play. Take him out of the play. But he's capable in this scenario of just playing through it, and I appreciated that out of him because it's something we've seen him kind of lack or fall off of over the last little while. I think this is one of the best games we've seen him play, and I'm hoping that this is one of those ones where you've played the Bruins, you played them the way that you did, you scored that really nice goal against them. Maybe this could be a launching pad throughout the remainder of the season where he can kind of get back to the point where he starts to be comfortable again, starts to have a little bit more of the dominance. Now, I don't think he's going to hit where he was last year. I just don't see that being the case. But what I do think is you could see him get to the point here where he's got a lot more creative ability in his game because we haven't seen it as much so far. I think to this point, he's been playing the other areas of his game very well, incorporating those in. He drastically improved his defense. He started playing more physical. He started blocking more shots, but we didn't see the offense like we've seen it before from him. Now, we're starting to see in this game here tonight a little bit of that offensive, I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to get going kind of moment out of Austin Matthews. I hope he can continue this while also maintaining what he's built so far this season and some of the other stuff. With the defensive play, with the blocking shots, with playing physical, with the forechecking. Keep that up, you're in a great position. Distant for WSOP. Love that you give hockey fans a voice. Talk radio doesn't allow fans to talk anymore. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's what we try to do here in the chat. Try to get to as much as we can. All the comments and everything that goes on here. Super chat here from Rico. Thank you, Rico, for the super chat. Rico saying, let's show some love for Leafs Digest. Doesn't Foligno look awful in a Bruins jersey? His dad was a great Leaf. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate the love. I can't speak to what his dad was like as a Leaf, unfortunately. I appreciate that people in the chat can. If you guys appreciated Foligno, his dad as a Leaf, let me know in the chat. I would be happy to hear about how good he was. I've seen the highlights. We've seen other people on other shows and on TV and on all the highlights. They talk about him. But I didn't get to see it myself in person. So unfortunately, I can't really speak to that other than the highlights and stats and stuff that we've read and other people talking about him. But look, he looked awful in a Bruins jersey when he got there. He hasn't looked great in a Bruins jersey. I think he's probably being paid more than they would like to be paying him right now for what he's kind of providing to that team. But I also think that what he's providing is what they would like, just not at the price. 3.8 mil is a lot of money for them to be paying him to play on the fourth line, but he does have 18 points. Right, so it's kind of like hard to go with. He hits, he fights. That's what Boston wants, and I can kind of appreciate that because that's what they like. But yeah, it's just, it was wrong timing in Toronto. He was injured. We gave up a lot to get him. It didn't work out. And yeah, he just hasn't been great in Toronto or in Boston. I will say that, admittedly, he hasn't been kind of what they thought he could be. But I don't think he's been horrible. Jeffrey Curry saying he was a hired gun for the playoffs. Such a bad move by Dubas. We lost the first rounder. It was a bad move in hindsight. And a lot of that, though, was because he was injured. Right? He got injured. He was injured, maybe. I don't know whether he was or wasn't at the time of the trade, but it was more of a hindsight move. I think had he come here and he'd been 100%, it could have been a good fit, but the compensation that was given up was probably, or was, too much at that point in time. That's what it is. So, yes, I kind of agree to an extent. I don't 100% agree with it, but yeah, it was the bad move after the fact. Stephen Beer saying, one of my buddies is a Bruins fan and they're scared and don't want to play the Leafs in the playoffs. And then immediately distant for WSOP saying Bruins fans are not scared of anyone. Yeah, I work with a guy who's a Bruins fan as well. We talked about this matchup and they're not, the ones that I know are not scared of anyone. But if the Bruins fans are scared of the Leafs, let them know. Just make them more scared. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I appreciate that, though. Denver, Charlebois. Zach, take the hat off. Not today. Bad hair day today, guys. Gotta keep that on. Jeffrey Curry, it's a bad gamble to make. First rounder is a huge price to pay for a playoff boost for 1 year. I mean, yeah, they'd probably like to trade that first rounder for a guy with term. I think that they would want to do that going forward, but it is what it is. That first rounder that they would have drafted that year, you can't sit here. I just read a comment from Rico. I don't even know what to say. But you can't sit here and say that first. Rico.
Good one, Randy. Good one.
I don't even know what to say. I'm just going to say that, honestly, the joke Rico said it. I'm just going to say it for him in case anybody missed it in the chat. Hey, guys, did you know that diarrhea is hereditary? It runs in your genes.
Having the time of his life.
But I will say as well, in that year, like, the Leafs finished around the top of the league at the end of the regular season. They were one of, if not the best team in the NHL for the regular season that year. The first round pick was not going to have as much value. Their scouting staff could have potentially looked at that draft and said, hey, we're not going to get much with what we have here. We're okay with trading it. It was for the wrong player, but like in that circumstance, they're probably looking at that going, this is what we need. We scored 1 million goals this year. We have the capability of scoring a lot and winning our way out of that. Jack Campbell was very good that season. We didn't really see many defensive problems. And you're going to sit there and say, like, hey, we're okay because we can get a gritty guy to play lower down in the lineup and let's roll with them. Maybe you're okay with moving on from that because you sit there and look at your draft spot and say, we don't see any value in this, and that guy's not going to be playing for us anytime soon. Maybe that's kind of where you're at with it going into it. I don't know. I'm just speculating on that, but maybe that's the thought process or the decision making that's going on. And the other thing is, like, yes, it looks really bad in hindsight, but he kind of ends up in a spot where that's the year that John Tavares goes down early in game 1. And then Jake Muzzin also leaves that series. You kind of get forced or jammed into a spot where you have to play guys in positions where they probably shouldn't be, and then things get highlighted a whole lot more. Six and a third. This loss hurt. Hate these magic moments we gift other teams. Very tiresome. Yeah, it's just a frustrating one, and the fact that they lost to the Bruins is not the frustrating part. It's more just how they lost. You battled back. You tie it up with a goal from Austin Matthews. A very, very good goal. It was the play of the day here that we gave out, and then it's a bad turnover by your captain inside your own zone. That's the ones that are frustrating. That's the ones that are frustrating. We were not up 3-1. It was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3. We were up 1-0. They tied it 1-1. We were up 2-1. They tied it 2-2. They went up 3-2. We tied it 3-3. So, 6 and a third against Montreal. Yeah. Yes. No, you're right. My bad. Mark Daigle, we need a power forward at second line left wing, someone who's going to make some noise and open up some space. I would agree. I don't disagree with that take. I think that's probably accurate. Before we wrap up here tonight, let's get to our grades of the game. All right, grade of the game. Let me know your grades of the game in chat. I'm kind of thinking like a B+. If anyone in the chat can talk me out of it, feel free. But I think B+. I'll also answer this quickly. This in 4WSOP. Why doesn't Bell/Rogers take any heat when the Leafs lose? Because they have no decision making in anything that goes on. They are strictly financial people. That's why. Like, they are just straight up like, here's the money. keep making us money and you can spend more money, do your thing. Like in this situation in Toronto with MLSE and what they have, they're not going to take any heat for it. It's going to be the people hired underneath them, the Masai Ujiri's, the Brendan Shanahan's, and so on. And then even like the person who's in charge of hiring them. And those are the people who are going to take the heat instead of the people above them who would be the owners of MLSE. Like that's not, yeah, they won't, that's why they won't take it. Hopefully that answered your question if that's what you were trying to ask. But yeah. All right, I'm going with a B+ though officially. Look, the Leafs didn't generate too many shots, but they did generate some higher danger opportunities against Ullmark. They were able to put 3 past them, and this guy has been incredible all season long. Like, you're looking at Ullmark's stats ahead of this game here tonight. He had 22 wins, 2 losses, 1 overtime loss, a .938 save percentage, 1.88 GAA. He has scored 3 goals on the guy. He finished with an .857 save percentage. Like, you created some opportunities. You were able to score some goals. I from an offensive standpoint, I think you're fine. You also had goals, some contribution from different guys in your lineup. Bunting scores on the power play. Engvall scores the unassisted goal. Matthews scores again there from Bunting and Marner. Marner 2 points tonight. Bunting 2 points. Like, you got some offensive production against a team that's pretty good at limiting it. My problem would be with defensive pairings. My problem would be Riley can't play with number 3. Riley can't play with Timmins. And at this point, it's looking a lot like a Morgan Riley issue and not as much as anyone else. It's coming down to Morgan Riley. The power play here tonight, 1 for 2. I think that's fine against a Bruins team that's just great all around. And then the other thing is, your penalty kill went 2 for 2 against a team with an electric power play. So your special teams was fine here tonight. On the power play goal that Bunting scored, like, it was very good because you were able to get zone entry, get into the offensive zone. You don't panic with the puck. You were able to set up a little bit. Tavares drives down wide, gets in down low, makes the pass out to Bunting in the slot, who buries it. Like, it was a nice play. You're able to enter the zone against a good defensive team and against a good goaltender. I think what really hurts it is the defense from the pairings of Riley and number 3 and Riley and Timmins. I think what hurts it a little bit is the coaching decisions of that pairing, of taking certain guys out of the lineup. Like, Hunt did nothing amazing here tonight. I would have still liked to see McMahon in. It's not like that's what lost the game. It's more just the decision of it in general. And then it's the, like, the decision of why is Riley being forced into all those minutes? He's not playing well. You end up in a spot where you can't play with Timmins, then you put him with Hall. You can't play him with Hall, but you still continue to play him as many minutes as you possibly can during the night. I can't understand that. That's something that I just can't wrap my head around. Like, I'm of the position, and I always would be, if you're playing at the pro level, if the guy's not playing well, sit him down a little bit. Let the guys who are playing well go out there for some more time. Like, Morgan Riley finishes -2 tonight, and he had 22 minutes of ice time. Sandin, 18 minutes. Liljegren, 20 minutes. Why can't those guys play more minutes? That's kind of where I get the frustration with it. And then it's, as I had talked about for a while earlier in the show, you go tie the game up, and you immediately put out Riley and Timmins, who you couldn't trust through the first 40 minutes, but now you've tied the game, whatever it was, like 2 minutes into the third period, and that happens. What is that decision? I can't understand that. And then the goals that were scored were, look at the first one, Riley turnover. Look at the fourth one, Tavares turnover. Some of those were bad. There was just some really head-scratching moments that took away from what would have otherwise been a really good game, because this was a fun game. It did not feel like at any point we were out of it. We were scared of physicality, scared of the aggressive play, like nothing. This team was engaged. They were there in this game tonight. I think that they had a good opportunity with it. But some costly turnovers take it away. Some interesting coaching decisions take it away. And I think that kind of hurts you in a game like tonight. But B+, that's my grade of the game. I don't know. Let's quickly scroll the chat, see if there's anything else going on, and then otherwise, if not, we'll probably finish this stream up. So, Rico saying, boys, a sat row 2 against Seattle. I saw the game up close. There's no physicality, like Bab said. It's effort, compete. It's true. Still got to battle for it. Leafs are fast when it goes their way. Yeah, but I think that that's more of a game-to-game basis. Through the majority of this season so far, we saw this team give effort. In the Seattle game, they did not. In the Detroit game, they did not give the effort. But even in losing games, we've still seen them have that. I would argue we've still seen them play the right way. And this was just one where the Detroit one, the Seattle one, they didn't play the right way. I think even in the game against Nashville, they didn't really play the right way. Tonight, I think they played more the right way. They did play physical. They did play well. Mig, in my eyes, if this team is going to go anywhere, it's imperative to get a Josh Anderson or a Tom Wilson type, because you can't have only 2 or 3 players in your top 9, let alone 6, that will hit. Here's where I would go with this. Josh Anderson will be extremely hard and extremely expensive to get because of one reason and one reason only. He is in your division and he is on your rival team. They will not easily give them up. Tom Wilson will not be traded. That Washington team has started to get on a roll. They are currently in a playoff spot. Like, Tom Wilson coming back is the best thing for him and for them. They will not trade him. They're 3 points up on the Islanders. They're 3 points back of the Rangers. Like, that Capitals team is in a pretty good spot right now. Tom Wilson ain't going nowhere. Your guys that you'd probably be looking at, because I understand the concern, and you're probably sitting here like, yeah, we need that type of player. I agree. I would like that kind of player as well, but that player that's available is probably Timo Meier, Philip Forsberg, but he might not even be available because Nashville is actually trying to make a push to catch up to Edmonton and Calgary. Sam Bennett, I think, could be a potential guy that you would look for. I think that one might be one that's a little off the radar to an extent of like, hey, maybe you could go get that guy. Those are kind of guys that I would look at, but those types of players are very few and far between. Like, the power forward, Wayne Simmons was that power forward. They went and got him. He's just not that player anymore. They're hard to come by. They're hard to find. And if you find them, a lot of them are already on playoff teams. So why would that team be willing to give them up, right? That's just kind of the concern with it. But I understand why you kind of feel that way. It's just whoever that player is has to be able to play offense as well, because this team has struggled with the scoring. They just need to, in the playoffs, not in terms of they don't have guys who can score, just they don't have that guy who can create something the greasy way. That's kind of where it goes with that. Doesn't have to be a guy who's hitting. It can just be a guy who is hard to knock off the puck, who can win battles. Like, those are the kinds of things you could look for from those types of players. Rico, it takes preparation, mindset, and execution. This team is good. Too much talent. Yep. I mean, fair enough. Handshake line, respect. If it's in the team culture to hit and play physical, everyone on the team will show that in the game. Adding in a physical guy here and there will not solve anything. I agree with that 100%. I think it's the way that the team plays. The way that the teams are structured now is more just how is the team playing as a unit? What is the team culture, the team mindset? This team, I think they've developed to a point here where they are much more team tough, but not individually tough. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Dagger 44. Nylander has gained weight. That's why his game has improved. Good training in the offseason. Fair enough. Vincent Lee. Evander Kane is underachieving this year. He might be easy to get. No. Evander Kane hasn't played in like a couple months because his wrist was stepped on. And he's making recovery and coming back. And Edmonton is praying to God he comes back because they think he can help them because he was good before he went out. That's distant for WSOP. Leafs need to sign Chuck Norris. Stephen Beer, which player should the Leafs go after in trade deadline? I don't know. Like, this is the thing. Timo Meier is the ideal guy, in my opinion. But I believe Timo Meier's qualifying offer next season would be $9 million, which is not possible. Like, where are you going to fit that in? I got to try to find where his qualifying offer for next year would be. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that would be it. So how do you fit that? I don't think you do. So unfortunately, I don't think that you can make that happen. Yeah, RJWI, it's 10 mil. There you go. So even worse. I think an interesting one to look at might be Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett's not going to blow you away with goal scoring. He played on a hard physical playoff team in Calgary. He goes to Florida. He's $4.4 million. He's left hand, left wing, can play center. He's got 27 points in 43 games, 9 goals, 18 assists. Like, he'll take penalties. He'll fight guys. He'll hit. He'll play physical. And he could probably fit into your top 6 on the line with Tavares and just bring some energy and kind of change the dynamic. He's 26 years old, and he's on contract this season till 2024, 2023, 2024, and 2024, 2025. So you could get this year and 2 more out of him. But again, this is where it becomes that guy's going to be more expensive because Florida probably feels like they could be better and should be better next year. They probably feel like this is a blip. So why would they want to give a guy like that up? And especially if the guy's going to be that valuable and be able to play alongside, say, a Matthew Tkachuk, right? Or like it just might be really hard to get that kind of player. Outside of that, I don't really know. I think we might find I think we might be shocked around the deadline this year, truthfully. And the other thing is, like, I just think it's a top 6 guy, and there's a lot of conversation around Ryan O'Reilly. I don't really buy into it necessarily. Part of that being he's injured right now. Who knows when he comes back? And he's a centerman. So either him or Tavares is going to have to play left wing, and you're going to have to make that adjustment on the fly. That will be really hard. So, I don't know. I think it's just a hard ad. I think we might just be shocked this year at who gets traded for and what happens. Rico, hold my beer. Rico is on one tonight. He's having himself a time. Rico, do you watch Circles Off? That's what I want to know. And then I'm going to talk about something else here. But Rico, let me know in the chat if you watch Circles Off. TML saying Nyes, and I've seen a couple of people bring up Nyes. My concern with Nyes is twofold. One, Matthew Nyes went back to college because he felt he needed to continue to develop and wasn't ready yet for the NHL. Last year, he was point per game player, 33 points, 33 games. The year before, when he was in the USHL, he's a point per game player. This year with Minnesota, currently point per game player. He hasn't really taken much of a development, in considering he was trying to go back and develop. He's a year older. He's more mature, whatever, in the NCAA. You'd expect with him trying to do that, he might be in a position where, hey, this guy can go in there and dominate. And he didn't really do that. And now I'm not saying I'm concerned about that because of the fact that he's not dominating, but it's more just like, all right, you kind of thought you'd go back and become a better player this year. Where does this go, and how does this translate immediately to the NHL level when you're jumping on a moving ship? And then the second part of the concern with this is that Minnesota is second in the country. Last year, they made it pretty deep in the college playoffs, making it pretty far in the tournament. This year, they're second in the country. They're probably going to make it pretty far again. And if he's going to need any type of transition period, that's just going to be delayed nonstop by the fact that he's still playing college hockey because his team is going far. Like, he's not just going to leave them if they're going to go on a run to come and join the Leafs. So that period where he could switch over is going to be very minimal. So he's going to have to make a big jump in a short period of time. I think it could be hard to get it acclimated in that period of time. So I don't want us to be just relying on this kid coming out of college and being an incredible player here. But yeah, that's my only concern with Nyes. Yeah, RJWI is saying he'll be done playoffs in college a week before the end of the season. Exactly. Like, he's gonna jump into the Leafs team, and then we're gonna sit here and be like, all right, like, yeah, this guy's gonna change our fortunes. That's my concern. All right. I think that's about going to do it for today's show. If you enjoyed the content, if you've been here before, or if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the conversation, please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can get notified by clicking that bell every time we go live on this channel, or every time a video is posted. And if you could please like this stream, that would be greatly appreciated as well. But we're breaking down Game 44 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season. A pretty good game against the Boston Bruins here tonight, but they do lose this one 4-3, moving to 26-11-7 on the season. And this Leafs team is now 0-7-3 when trailing going into the third. So unfortunate stats there, but appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. We will see everyone very soon. Keep believing.